At the GPO Witness History Visitor Centre on Dublin's O'Connell Street, the public can explore a museum where they can experience the events of the 1916 Easter Rising. We spoke to Anne-Marie Smith, the Education Manager of GPO Witness History, who will explain how historians helped to piece the exhibition together. Why is the GPO important in the events of Easter Week 1916?
This was the headquarters for the rebels in 1916. They took it over on Easter Monday, 24th of April 1916, as it was the head of communications, and it was also kind of the main building on Sackville Street at the time. So this was where all the strategic planning, all the action was directed from here.
What would a student learn about when they visit the GPO?
We cover modern history from 1900 right up to 2015. So really they're learning the whole political history of Ireland. Of course we focus on the 1916 Easter Rising.
What role did historians play in the exhibition?
Well, the historians would have proofed all the content that was here. So there was a team of 3 historians. We had Professor Dermot Ferreter, Dr. Fergal McGarry and Dr. Roisin Higgins. So each took their own section and made sure that the content was absolutely 110% correct. So we do stand by everything that's there.
What kind of primary and secondary sources can be seen in the exhibition?
Well, there's a rich array in particular in primary sources. So I suppose one of the main items would be the original proclamation. So that is on display. We're very fortunate to have, because very few of them survived, and so we have that here. A lot of the original artefacts as well really touch with people. We have Tom Clark, one of the eldest of the leaders of 1916. We have his little wallet that was given back to his wife after he was executed, and in it was a memorial card to his father that he carried around, and a little envelope with the couple of hairs of his son. So I think that really is, it's the human story as well that we really focus on here. And then in terms of secondary sources, probably one of the highlights would be the movie. So it's a curved screen and it's from floor to ceiling. So it really gives, I think, international visitors and schools children really a good insight into the week of fighting. So that's really one of the highlights. Another thing would be the games. We have a lot of interactive games which both the young and older children enjoy doing.
And what does the exhibition tell us about the ordinary people of Dublin during 1916?
Well, and it's one of my favourite aspects of it, that it's not just concentrating on kind of the leaders and the fighting, but it does tell the actual horrific conditions that ordinary Dubliners found themselves in, and that we actually have an area where you can see a wealthy child and a poor child living in a tenement, living side by side, and we focus on the social conditions, what their diet would have been, the mortality, and Dublin really had one of the worst slum cities in the world, next to Calcutta. So we focus on that. We also look at the bystanders, the ordinary people that were killed. The majority of the casualties, like any conflict, were the actual ordinary civilians. So we have some wonderful artefacts and original objects from the ordinary civilians as well.
Where did the 1916 artefacts come from?
The majority of them were given to us by private collectors, so 90% of them actually came from one gentleman. Yes, that would have been sourced by Martello. So we were very fortunate, because when we were opening, we were opened in March 2016, and a lot of other institutions and museums were having their 1916 exhibitions, so it was actually very difficult to get a loan of objects from other institutions. So we were very fortunate that we did get private lenders gave us the vast majority of our collection, so we do hold it in great care here.
Does the exhibition carry out conservation of primary and secondary sources?
So we have professionals, a professional company that come in, and they come in at least once a year, and they make sure that the objects are in best conditions in terms of the lighting, that it's not too much lighting. We also have humidity controls and monitors, all making sure that there's no little pests or anything.
Did any new evidence come to light that made historians reinterpret the 1916 events?
Because we present the history from the 4 different perspectives, we tell the story of Easter week from the rebels, from the GPO workers, the bystanders and the Crown forces, and we have original primary sources from all those 4 different bodies that I think really we allow people to view those sources, to engage with them, and then to really at the end then decide to make up their own mind you know, was it right to go ahead with the rising, you know, were the rebels right to go ahead without the people's mandate. So it's really presenting the facts there in a really dignified and like every artefact there's a bias attached to it because it's coming from, you know, a person's perspective. But I think because we present it from all perspectives, then, you know, we do pride ourselves on being very unbiased.
How important are the timelines that we see in the exhibition?
I think they're really important, especially for school children, because it's quite a difficult subject we deal with. I mean, our timelines, we look at from 1913 to 1923, and it's actually trying to explain to people as well that, okay, here we are, the Irish were fighting the British, and then by 1922-23 we're fighting each other. And I think a lot of people do find it hard to go, okay, how did this all happen? How did we go from one to fighting ourselves? So I think the timelines really just kind of give a little snippets, the key incidences or the key events of those periods. And so really the schools really get a great overall, put the whole story into context by viewing those timelines.
So why is it important for students to understand the events of 1916?
I think it's so important that we get a sense of where we've come from, and you know, nowhere better than to come into the GPO and to really experience, you know, where the nation was really formed, where the Republic was declared. And it just, that I think that it does it in such a dignified way, and that's something we really pride ourselves on, that it's done without any bias. And I just think that really it's so important that children know where our country has come from and to be really, really proud of it. And I think the work that the leaders started in 1916, if we look at the Irish Proclamation, it's so relevant, like they were so ahead of their time in many of things they were looking for. Cherish all of the children of the nation equally, you know, civil liberty, religious equality. So it's great to see kids coming in and just really learning about our country.